Allen Company, 47 years young and a proud sponsor, wishes OOIDA all the best as you celebrate 50 years.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Reddick.
Getting 1099 pay? We break down who should and shouldn't be paid as independent contractors and what you can do if you think you're being paid wrong. Additionally, we'll look at the advantages true independent contractors get by getting 1099 pay. The July issue of Landline magazine will soon be delivered. This month's magazine focuses on all the efforts in Washington, from speed limiters and bathroom access to EPA pushback and overtime pay. And finally, the issue of non-consensual towing hasn't come up in a while, but that doesn't mean nothing's been happening. I'll talk about recent action in Maryland with OOIDA Director of Safety and Security Operations, Doug Morris. But first, the news with Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Mark. Nearly $2 billion has been invested to improve transportation infrastructure in California. The California Transportation Commission announced the investment this week while approving an additional $2.3 billion for future projects. Some of the funding will go to 26 projects that support infrastructure improvements on corridors that carry a high volume of freight traffic, with the goal of increasing efficiency, improving safety, and constructing an equitable and sustainable freight system. More than a third of the projects include technology components to support the development of a zero-emission freight transportation system and invest in light, medium, and heavy zero-emission vehicle infrastructure. The state of Michigan has announced a new real-world prototype program known as the Mobility Charging Hub, which will reportedly help to enable companies to transition fleets to electric commercial vehicles. According to a news release, Michigan will have access to $13 million in funding to support the Mobility Charging Hub development and secure partnerships with companies aiming to test and implement solutions related to EV innovation, fleet management, and overall ease of travel. Initial project partners are Daimler Truck North America and DTE Energy. The Mobility Charging Hub will tackle solution developments through several multi-phased initiatives. In the first phase, the core infrastructure to support EV charging at the site will be established as a foundation. DTE will operate the core infrastructure of the Mobility Charging Hub, including EV charging solutions, solar canopies, and battery energy storage systems, and will look to partner with third-party operators for value-added services. An 86-year-old railroad bridge in Lexington, Kentucky is one of two big infrastructure projects in the state. WKYT reports that U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg visited the area this week to award the grants. The $8.1 million will go towards replacing the bridge. Lexington mayor says she's heard complaints throughout the years about trucks getting stuck, people unable to walk through the overpass, and stormwater drainage. Secretary Buttigieg says this project should fix those issues.
There's a lot of places where you mention that intersection, that bridge, and everybody knows what you're talking about because it's such a headache. That's certainly true of this underpass.
The other project is the Pan Bowl Lake Corridor project, where $21 million was awarded.
They combine safety with better traffic flow and inclusion, too. You know, a rural area like Breathitt, a diverse area like this part of Lexington. These are the kinds of communities that are often left out of transportation funding and decisions. We're trying to do it differently this time.
The goal of these projects is to make the city safer and connect the community. Some truck drivers who received their CDL through 5-star CDL training in Richmond, Virginia, may have to take their tests again. WTVR did an investigation and reports that the trucking school may not have been administering CDL knowledge or skills tests properly. According to one man who got a letter that he would have to retake his tests, he was quoted saying he's one of around 350 who got the letter. According to the article, an investigation, including an audit conducted jointly with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, found that 5-star personnel were, quote, not administering these tests as required by state and federal law, and in some cases were passing some applicants whose performance did not warrant a passing score. The article said that management with 5-star would not comment on the investigation at this time, but told CBS 6 that they made personnel changes immediately after the investigation began in April. The company said it was trying to help drivers who may have been impacted by the investigation Transportation, offering to completely cover costs for any retraining and retesting, hoping to make sure students can be retested as quickly as possible. The Director of Communications with Virginia DMV said it extended weekend testing hours, established an additional temporary testing site, and dedicated a specific individual person customers may contact to assist. The governor in Washington state is calling for more speed cameras in hopes to decrease the number of fatal traffic collisions. The Olympian newspaper reports that Governor Jay Inslee said that there's too many people not coming home to their families without taking a common sense measure like this. During a meeting with agency leaders this week, he shared his support for the cameras and law enforcement. Data was reviewed, and it was reported that leaders saw a concerning lack of progress towards Target Zero, a state safety plan that aims to eliminate fatal and serious injury collisions by 2030. Governor Inslee said he saw firsthand how speed cameras help slow traffic on a recent trip to Europe. The state authorized the use of speed cameras in highway work zones with passage of Senate Bill 5272 earlier this year. However, Inslee's proposal would go further. He said he would direct the Washington Traffic Safety Commission to work with his staff to develop a plan for increasing the use of speed cameras. Operational costs in trucking have increased. The American Transportation Research Institute released the findings of its 2023 update to an analysis of the operational costs of trucking. In a press release, ATRI said a record number of motor carriers participated in this year's research, which analyzed a wide variety of line item costs, operating efficiencies, and revenue benchmarks by fleet size and sector. Total marginal costs climbed to a new high in 2022 for the second year in a row, increasing by 21.3% over 2021 to $2.21 per mile. Though fuel was the largest driver of this spike, 53% higher than in 2021, multiple other line items also rose by double digits. Driver wages increased by 15% to 72 cents per mile. Driver benefits, however, remained stable in 2022. ATRI says despite falling rates throughout the year, average operating margins were at least 6% in all sectors, while larger fleets' average operating margins improved from 2021 to 2022. Smaller fleets saw operating margins decline. Travel Centers of America is honoring active military and veterans this July 4th. TA announced this year all active military members and veterans are invited to eat for free at participating full-service and quick-service restaurants on July 4th. All you need to do is show proof of service. TA says it's their way of saying thank you for serving our country. And finally, a French firefighter ran a record-breaking distance, all while on fire. Guinness World Record reports that 39-year-old Jonathan Vero set a record for the longest distance full-body burn run without oxygen. Wearing a protective suit, he ran 893 feet while engulfed in flames, breaking the previous record of 670 feet. In doing so, Jonathan also broke the record for the fastest full-body burn 100-meter sprint without oxygen, clocking in at 17 seconds, beating the previous record by 7.58 seconds. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Ashley. Congratulations to Michael E. Zanella of Columbus, Ohio. He's received the OOIDA Safe Driving Award for 32 years of safe, accident-free driving. That's the equivalent of a car driver going 240 years without causing a single accident. The OOIDA Safe Driving Award program is sponsored by Shell Rotella. Next, Jamie Jones discusses 1099 pay with Barry Fowler of Taxation Solutions, and we'll get a preview of the July issue of Landline magazine. We'll be back in just a moment with more of the program. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Firestone tires are for more of everything. More miles for every tire dollar, and more confidence in your fleet. At Firestone, we help fleets save with dependable value. Find your local Firestone dealer today at firestonetire.com/dealer.
Every make, every model, in every corner of the country. Technical smarts and quality parts. That's how we roll. Bring your rig into TA Truck Service.
Landline Now, welcome back. I'm Jamie Jones. Employee misclassification has been a really hot topic with the adoption of AB5 in California, the lawsuits filed because of AB5 in California, and some moves at the federal level. And along with all of, trying to sort out who is or is not an independent contractor in the eyes of these rules and regulations, there's been an uptick in drivers getting paid on 1099s. So here today to help sort out what 1099 pay is, its pros and cons, et cetera, is Barry Fowler with Taxation Solutions Tax Relief. Barry, thanks for calling in.
Hey, Jamie, it's great to be here. It's always great to talk with you and be here on Landline. It's a great show, and, 1099s is a hot topic these days.
It is. So let's just kind of bail right in with the basics. What is 1099 pay?
1099 is you're an independent contractor, meaning the company's not going to pull any taxes out of your check, meaning they're not going to pull state tax, they're not going to pull federal tax, they're not going to pay Social Security and Medicare. The company doesn't have to pay their half of Social Security and Medicare either. You'll actually report that income on a Schedule C as self-employment income. You're now an independent contractor.
So some of the people that we are hearing from getting 1099 pay really don't seem to fit that definition of independent contractor. They don't own their equipment. By all rights and purposes, the company calls all the shots, and they would not be candidates for 1099, correct?
Typically, that is correct. There's several rules that the IRS puts into place to determine if somebody is a independent contractor or if somebody is an employee, and a lot of it comes down to control. Who controls what you do, how you do it, when you do it, and that's where the IRS would come back and issue penalties against the company if they exert all that in control. And that includes, whose equipment are you using? Are you using theirs or are you using your own? If you're leasing the equipment, well, then it's your equipment. It's not their equipment. If they're making you drive their equipment, then it is their equipment, and typically you would then be considered an employee. And subject to employee rules, employee regulations, all the benefits of an employee, and the company withholding taxes from your check.
Yeah, because when you're on a 1099, so you said all the benefits. I mean, you're going to have to buy your own health insurance. You're going to have to do, you get a lot of deductions along with a 1099, but the tax liabilities and everything fall squarely in your lap.
That's correct. And, depending on who's paying for everything, you may not, as a 1099 contractor, have all those deductions anyway. So, you may be able to deduct your cell phone and a few other expenses, but, the company's still taking the deduction for your fuel, your insurance, and all those things, and they may not be pulling it technically out of your check. Or if they are, then they're giving you the gross amount and showing, hey, fuel and other things coming out, and then you'll be able to deduct that. But again, you at the end of the day, net income from that business as an independent contractor, you're going to pay 15.3% roughly of FICA, Social Security, and Medicare taxes. Whereas as an employee, you only pay 7.5%, so you're paying roughly half, and the company picks up the other half.
So why do you think some of these motor carriers it really kind of almost feels like they're trying to slide this over. Are they just shirking that tax responsibility or trying to find a way around it?
Well, they're trying to find ways around it. What they're trying to do is avoid having to pay maybe workers' comp on you, make you carry your own insurance. They're trying not to pay all the other employee benefits they may give to regular employees, such as health insurance. They may be contributing to 401ks, things like that, that is you as an independent contractor wouldn't get, but as an employee they would have to pay just like they do for anybody else. A lot of times they're trying to get away from that. They also, as an independent contractor, don't have to pay state unemployment on you either, or the federal unemployment taxes.
So say I really deep in my heart believe that I am a company driver. I'm an employee, to be specific. I don't own my own equipment. I don't set my own schedule. Basically, the company has that control, but they're trying to pay me on a 1099. Is that a situation where you walk away, before it ever even starts? Or if it has happened, do you report them to the IRS? What does that look like?
Well, it's an interesting question because do you want the job? Do you need the job? You start reporting your employer for this, and you will probably no longer have that job, and you'll have to go somewhere else. If it works to your benefit, you might enjoy that. But if you get fired or they terminate your contract, you're not going to be able to go claim unemployment. So you've kind of got to make that determination yourself. But if you want to report them, you would then call the IRS and report them to the IRS that, hey, you were technically an employee. They exerted all the control. Another way of getting government involved in this is report them to the unemployment office in your state. They do a very good job of coming out and doing investigations as well. And then you could get unemployment potentially from the employer if they determine that you were an employee, and they will hit them for all the back taxes.
All right, so let's flip the script. We're going to move from employee drivers potentially not getting paid with 1099, but maybe shouldn't. Let's talk about owner-operators, leased on motor carriers, leased onto a motor carrier. You are on 1099 pay. What are the advantages for owner-operators in that realm?
The biggest advantage is if you are driving away from home overnight, you get to deduct the per diems, and that is for travels, for meals. It helps cover the cost of food while you're on the road. And at $69 a night, that is a pretty good benefit. Most of our drivers that we do bookkeeping and taxes for, in actual expenses, they get nowhere near that $69. So it becomes a huge write-off for them as a driver. You get to write off your cell phone. And we find all the other little deductions for things that you're putting into your truck that you're using while you're on the road to conduct your business, and we can lower that income down, which lowers the Social Security and Medicare taxes, the self-employment taxes, and of course your federal income tax and state income tax as well. So you get to take advantage of many, many deductions, and you can find a way, if it relates to business and it's used for business and it is ordinary and necessary in business, it is a write-off. So we want to use every single write-off that you can possibly use to get as many deductions possible to lower those taxes for yourself.
Yeah, and we recently, I think it wasn't too long ago, although time is blurring in my head as I'm trying to say this, we actually had a column from you in Landline Magazine not too long ago detailing a lot of what those deductions are. So, and it's kind of surprising on how crazy it can get, I guess, in some regards. I mean, there are a lot of deductions out there available.
Oh yeah, there definitely is, and you just got to look for them. You got to look and figure out, hey, what are we doing here in business? We do a lot of taxes for truck drivers, owner operators that don't use us for bookkeeping. We're always looking and going, hey, what about these expenses? No, well, we didn't know we could take expenses. You have a dog that's considered your guard dog in your truck. We can take expenses for that dog who is now technically a service dog for you. And, so we're looking at every single thing that you're doing to be able to get you those benefits. And so, our service here, doing bookkeeping looks for them all the time. The simple things as, like I said, the use of your cell phone. What are you buying for that truck? I mean, it could be little things like, fire extinguisher, supplies, different things you use within the truck. And you say, hey, it's not a big deal to write off the little things. It's not saving me that much. But a lot of little things add up to a pretty good number for you. So you can continue to do those savings every single year, looking for every way to write off things that you're using every day within that truck to do your job.
So documentation is key in all of this. On your per diem, can you just keep your logbooks? Is that good enough to prove when you were away from home and how long and all of that?
We tell everybody to download your ELD logs, every 6 months. Depends on how often they reset them and if you can get the information. If you're not really good with the electronics and being able to see, there how often you're leaving, you can keep a calendar and say, hey, I picked up unload here. This is my first night. You get half a per diem there. This is my night I returned home and get a half a night there. And then all the days in between are $69. So you can make it really simple in an easy calendar and be able to count the days. Probably easier to do that sometimes than it is to go back and look at the electronic logs.
Oh, sure. And so when you start talking about the deductions and stuff, saving those receipts, do you still have clients come in with the shoe boxes full of receipts?
We have people that send us boxes, and sometimes we got to set them outside the door and let them air out a little bit before the staff will touch them and go through them. But yeah, we do have a few that do that. A lot of people now, are working with us electronically where they can send us, receipts, send us their bank statements, send us their credit card statements, their settlement statements and stuff all electronically, so we don't have to deal with the paper. Plus those receipts, after about 3 to 6 months, they're faded and gone and you can't read them anyway. So, you want to take pictures of them or you want to scan them in and save them. So any way you can build a file for yourself. It may not have to be perfect, but it does need to have some information so that you can support the deductions that you're going to take on your tax returns.
So in your perfect world, what does the client walk in with? I mean, what kind of system do you like to see them use overall?
In my perfect world, every owner-operator is a bookkeeping client of ours, and we keep track of their records for them so that there isn't any question, do you get this deduction, and, what is the information behind it? Second perfect world is somebody else that comes in with a profit and loss and balance sheet. The records are good. How often does that happen when they come in with that profit and loss? Few and far between. A lot of people want to do it in their spreadsheets. They want to just send us receipts. We take all kinds and help them through it. We're going to help you try to find as many deductions as possible.
Oh, sure. We only have about a minute left. Quickly, just looking ahead, are there any tax deadlines we need to warn people about that they need to be getting ready for?
The one big deadline that we always tell people to get ready for is estimated tax payments. You want to make sure that, every quarter you're making those estimated tax payments, and those come basically April 15th. We just passed June 15th. The next one's going to be in September and October, or September, and then the last one's in January.
All right. Barry, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And if you're looking to become an owner-operator here anytime soon, one of the best things to do is OOIDA Foundation puts on Truck to Success seminar. You got to attend that. I'll be there talking about trucker taxes and bookkeeping. You need to be there if you're considering getting out to be an owner-operator.
All right. That was Barry Fowler with Taxation Solutions Tax Relief, or taxationsolutions.net, and truckertaxtools.com. This is Landline Now, and we'll be back right after the break.
You trust PrePass for more bypasses? Now let PrePass help with tolls. PrePass toll service means lower cost, one invoice for all tolls, and fewer violations. Created by truckers for truckers. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Attention all truckers, Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I want to talk to you about those dreaded tax problems. I know you want to keep on trucking and not even think about them, but let's face it, they're not going away all on their own. You need professional help. I've been helping truckers put their tax problems in the rearview mirror for years. I can help you too. Call me now for a free consultation at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com. It's like I always say, keep your eyes on the road, I'll keep mine on the IRS. 888-557-4020.
Landline Now, welcome back. We're heading into July, and that means a new issue of Landline Magazine will soon be arriving in your mailboxes. To talk to me about this month's issue, Landline Magazine Managing Editor Jamie Jones and Senior Editor Mark Schremer join me. Thank you both for coming in.
Hey, you're welcome, Ashley.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Now, this month's issue looks a lot at what's going on in Washington. And Jamie, I'll start with you. There is a lot going on in Washington.
There really is. each issue is planned by a large extent. I mean, it's not something that we just willy-nilly throw together at the last minute, and it's usually months in the planning. But the thing that's always strikes me is how after it's done, you could even find an unintended theme that wove through this issue. Each issue, it just inevitably turns out that way. And I don't know, I think this whole year, the approach to the magazine has been driven by a bit of nostalgia, too, because we have the 50th anniversary of OOIDA, which is, covered in every issue from different aspects and stuff. And it's been a very active year for the association, getting a lot of headway on some very key issues that are important to truckers. And I don't know, when you start looking at it from that perspective and remember that all of this really, the steam started building back in 2020 during the shutdown. Mm-hmm. And to see that the association has been so successful keeping their foot on the gas, if you will, and the pressure on Congress, that the conversations have just turned so dramatically. And I think this issue of the magazine, the July issue, which will go live on our website July 1st, and you can subscribe there to free for online access too. Anyway, shameless plug in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
Of course.
Hey, you got to do it.
Yeah, you got to do it. So anyway, it's just, I think it's really important to memorialize how dramatically things have changed and the support that truckers are starting to get in Congress. And this issue does it very, very well.
Now, there's an op-ed in this issue that gives readers a snapshot of what different lawmakers think on different issues, from truck parking to pay. Why was it important to show readers this?
Yeah, a lot of this goes back to, so in May, OOIDA Executive Vice President Louis Pugh testified in front of a House subcommittee, and it's going back to what Jamie was saying, that with all of the issues from the pandemic and everything that came out of that, we're really starting to see that lawmakers are interested in hearing what truck drivers have to say and how that's affecting the supply chain, how that's affecting the economy overall. And
funny how a toilet paper shortage really gets a lot of people's attention.
Exactly.
That's all we had to do was hold the Charmin hostage.
Yep. Yeah, find out that you can't get something at the grocery store or whatever else, and people started really paying attention to it. And what was great about it is through that whole hearing, which lasted, 2-3 hours, almost every lawmaker who spoke at it had a question for Louis. And so even though this is the July issue, we really going back to it because this hearing, I think, in a lot of ways kind of sets a roadmap for what we're going to see throughout Congress and related to trucking issues, because they were getting information directly from Louis and other experts in regards to this. And what we have here out of this op-ed that you were mentioning is several different lawmakers talking about different issues related to trucking, and we have Republicans that side with things that OOIDA supports, and you have Democrats that side with things OOIDA supports. And I think it is really kind of showing, the diversity of the issues and things that really are going to help drivers. And there are, on both sides of the aisle, lawmakers out there that support things that I think are good for individual truck drivers.
Well, and the thing that, and it's kind of interesting because you even want to sit here and go, okay, there's one Republican, 2, 3, you kind of want to stack it up. But, I think we don't talk about it enough, and we certainly don't write about it enough. But the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, which this is a subcommittee of the Highways and Transit, it's known for its bipartisan legislation. Mm-hmm. I mean, you really see collaboration between the two parties more so in that committee than almost anywhere else in Congress. And, they have their moments.
Yeah,
partisan
sure.
politics are going to, interfere from time to time, but universally you see that. And when you have a committee hearing that they all but 3 lawmakers on the committee had something for OOIDA to speak on, and they were in support of it. So that is a really, when you're begging for a seat at the table 50 years ago when the association started, and here you're the go-to organization for the straight scoop, that's a big change.
Now, you mentioned the House hearing. There's an interesting article in this issue that actually our Scott Thompson wrote, kind of a behind-the-scenes look.
Oh, yeah. So Mr. Pugh goes to D.C. And it goes back to what I was kind of saying, 50 years ago, the association started because truck drivers were not being listened to. And, so there's been a lot of people, a lot of work and effort within the association over these 5 decades to be a power player in D.C. And that work, you get the invitation to testify before a congressional committee. And I think it's so important to understand the amount of work and prep and everything that goes into that, because you will have an idea of the issues being discussed, because the OOIDA Washington, D.C. staff, which I really want to know how many pairs of shoes they wear out a year. I mean, they are a hard-working team, and, OOIDA is successful largely because of their efforts behind the scenes. So they'll be meeting with staff of these lawmakers, so they'll have an idea of what the lawmakers are curious about or what their pet issues are that they want to talk about. But, yeah, this story and Scott's ability to follow them through this prep process and be the proverbial fly on the wall. I know he did a radio segment in it, so when we put this issue goes online July 1st, like I said, we will embed that segment in there too, because the radio show was also very good on this same topic. So I really encourage people to read both, because it shows that nothing happens by accident. This is all by design and with a lot of work and effort.
Now, Mark, you have an article on speed limiters with the DRIVE Act. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah. So what this basically is, it was introduced by Representative Josh Burkeen, a Republican out of Oklahoma. And what it would do, as I'm sure all of our listeners are aware that are paying attention, FMCSA has been pushing for a speed limiter mandate. A notice of proposed rulemaking is expected out later this year that would set a top speed on most commercial motor vehicles. What this bill would do would basically stop FMCSA from moving forward for any sort of rulemaking. The concerns are, large speed differentials. There's places where the speed limits are 85 miles an hour, and some of these proposals, I think safety groups want the top speed for heavy duty trucks to be 60 miles an hour. So you can see the dangers real easily what could be caused there when you have, because if that speed limit's 85, that means cars are going 90, 95 on that road. And if you have a truck that can't go any faster than 60, those two things don't mix. So that's something that definitely was talked about during that hearing with Louis, as we mentioned, and I think is building a little bit of steam. I think last I looked, there was about 19 co-sponsors on that.
You know what I always find interesting when they start talking the actual speed, the number. You get tangled up in a crash with an 80,000-pound fully loaded tractor trailer. What's that extra 5 miles per hour less going to do? You've lost. You've already lost in that scenario.
It's not good. Yeah.
And so it's, sometimes I really am baffled by the fact that they even try to hook this to safety. I mean, obviously you need to drive a safe speed. That's the whole point. But to say that a reduction that's going to cause more interactions and then miraculously 5 or 10 miles per hour less, I would say a 60 mile per hour, 80,000-pound truck and trailer is going to do pretty much the same amount of damage as a 70 mile per hour one.
And I believe, looking at the statistics, the most crashes are actually in the 55 mile an hour zones. So even if you do set this at 60 or 65, that's not necessarily helping in those. So
I just feel like we're up against, this is one of those that it's an emotional argument.
Yeah.
It's always going to be an emotional argument.
Yep.
And it's hard to talk facts when that's where they're coming from. It's not hard to do it. They won't change their mind, I guess is what I'm saying.
No. Now, restroom access was also talked about in this month's issue. Where are we with that?
Well, that bill has been reintroduced in the House. Representative Troy Nehls out of Texas, and again, I know we're going back to that hearing, but he gave a very impassioned speech during that, kind of calling out lobbyists and opponents of the bill, and what the restroom bill would do. It doesn't create any extra funding or anything like that. It would just basically be that if you're a truck driver and you're delivering to, shipper or receiver, and they already have a restroom that is available to their employees or customers there, they have to be able to, give truck drivers that same right to use the restroom while they're there. That's all it is. And Nehls was pointing out, like I said, to the lobbyists that are trying to sink this bill, as he put it. He goes, why don't we, not allow the bathrooms in Congress for lobbyists to be able to use, make them go outside and find a tree and all of that. And like I said, he's a Texas lawmaker, so you can, the way he kind of puts it in phrases that
it was colorful.
Yeah,
yes. It was colorful.
Colorful is the way. And you can tell, this is an issue that OOIDA has let him know about. He wasn't aware of this. And, I've spoken with him before on this issue, and you could tell that once he learned about it, it really is something that bothered him. He respects truck drivers for what they do, what they did through the pandemic, and this is something that he definitely wants to get across the finish line. I can't see how this wouldn't have unanimous bipartisan support. It has been kind of slow trickling in as far as getting co-sponsors, but maybe as Congress returns, maybe we can pick up some steam and see where this goes.
Well, and we can get people to go to Fighting for Truckers and email their lawmakers to get on board with this, because it really is a light bulb moment when you start talking about this issue to people. They're like, "Whoa, wait, what? What? Yeah. They don't allow them to use restrooms?" Yeah.
Yeah. And Louis mentioned at one point during the hearing, he goes, I never thought that there would be a day I'd be here in the best nation in the world having to talk about, allowing truck drivers to use the restroom. But here we are. Mm-hmm. And that's... Mm-hmm.
And Mark, one thing you said kind of highlights the importance of OOIDA and, the importance of people speaking up, and that that lawmaker didn't even know that was an issue, but OOIDA informed him. Just kind of reiterate, the importance of what OOIDA does, but also the Fighting for Truckers and having these truck drivers reach out to their lawmakers to inform them.
Yeah, so many of these bills that we've talked about today are, OOIDA helped lawmakers craft. So it is so important to keep on reaching out on those type of bills and going to fightingfortruckers.com, as we mentioned.
All right, wonderful. Thank you both so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Our thanks to Jamie Jones and Mark Schremer of Landline Magazine. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackbird, and we'll be back after this.
Today's rising costs affect everyone. Replace your harmonic damper with a genuine Vibertech TVD viscous damper to prevent costly repairs and downtime. Keep your money in your pocket and your truck on the road with Vibertech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline Now, welcome back. The issue of non-consensual towing hasn't come up in a while, but that doesn't mean that nothing has been happening. Here to talk about recent action in the state of Maryland is OOIDA Director of Safety and Security Operations, Doug Morris. Doug, how are you doing?
Hey, Mark. How are you today?
Very well. Just so we can kind of refresh people's memories, what do we mean by that term, non-consensual towing?
That means when let's say you're involved in an accident or your truck breaks down in the roadway and law enforcement comes to the scene and then they contact a tow service for you because obviously you don't have a tow service on hand, or you're probably not in the area, don't know a tow service that can get there within 30 minutes by law. So they call a tow service for you, and generally comes off a list that they have at their police station.
So what was the situation regarding non-consensual towing previously in Maryland? What was happening there?
And this comes up in a lot of states. The problems are there's no set rates. A lot of towing companies, seem to put a surcharge on trucks from out of state. They charge per pound billing. They charge for, extreme amounts of money for towing and storage. A lot of times they would hold the rig for hostage until they got paid. And obviously the goods in the trailer, they would hold that as well. And we've seen tow bills, in excess of $100,000. And, obviously that's very egregious. And this was happening in Maryland, and I can tell you it's happening throughout pretty much every state. We've seen some of these tow bills that are just egregious. Some tow companies just charge what they want when they see a tractor trailer. They put the tariff on you.
How does the legislation that just passed address those problems?
Yeah, so in Maryland, if the law enforcement calls a tow truck for you, there's going to be a tow list. There's going to be set rates. There's going to be a 7-member panel that will look at the rates every 3 years, and Maryland Motor Truck Association will have somebody on that panel. The Owner-Operator Independent Driver Association will have someone on that panel. Law enforcement, they have the tow truck representatives, they have insurance representatives, and folks from the State Highway Administration on there. Like I said, it's going to be a 7-member panel that's going to look at these things for the rates as well as any tow complaints. That these members will look at tow complaints and make a decision whether the tow bill was egregious or was within the guidelines or what have you. There was also the per pound billing will go away also, and that's going to happen next year instead of 2023. So it is outstanding legislation. We're trying to push this in other states. We're trying to work with other state trucking associations. We worked with Maryland Motor Truck Association in Maryland. The problem being is this: a lot of these other state trucking associations are kind of compromised because they have tow truck members, tow truck company members. And they'll talk to you, and we'll talk to other states and say, yeah. And then all of a sudden they're kind of like, we kind of support that, but, we can't really go on a limb and publicly support it because some of our members are not on board with it. And, what's right's right, what's wrong's wrong, and this was right legislation. In the end, the tow truck operators were there for the bill signing. They got their picture taken with it. They basically said behind the scenes, listen, we have some bad actors. We know that. In the end, we think this is good legislation.
You mentioned that we worked with the Maryland Motor Truck Association on getting this passed. What was the role that OOIDA played in getting this legislation to the finish line?
Yes. So we actually lobbied in the State House of Maryland. We actually hired consultants to help us lobby in Maryland. Obviously, we don't have a lot of connections in Maryland, but we hired a firm in Maryland that had a former influential Senator, Mac Middleton, and he helped us get it across the line. That this was legislation that was dragging until we got the consultants on board, and we actually had members call down there. We had members from the state of Maryland call, and as it was moving forward, it kept on getting momentum until the fact we got it done. I mean, it was in the 12th hour. We were like, wow, we got this done. We really actually got this done. And the tow truck operators hired lobbyists to lobby against certain things in the bill, like per pound billing. They wanted to keep that, and they wanted to be able to continue to hold the truck and trailers hostage for payment. Now, if they're, the trucking company does not like the bill or has complaint with the bill, they can still pay 20% of the bill to get the rig out before they could hold that truck for as long as they wanted until they got payment. So, and like I said, there is a complaint process now. So this is landmark legislation. Hopefully we can get this done in other states. I know Texas is interested in it and Virginia's interested in it and several other states. But again, it's working with the state trucking associations because those legislators look to those state trucking associations for advice in the handling of these type of situations.
Something you said there kind of jarred my thinking here. And you've referred to a little bit of this before, but how would this work on the ground? Meaning, if I'm a trucker who's had a non-consensual tow performed and I think the bill is beyond what it should be. What would I do? How would this work for that individual trucker?
Yeah, so they're going to set up a complaint process. My understanding of how, and we're still having conference calls about this. My understanding would be that the trucker would call the local police station where they called the towing company. You would say, listen, I think this is an egregious bill. I want to file a complaint. There would be a complaint process, a form or something you would fill out. And then it would go to the board, which meets on a regular basis, and they would decide whether or not that, falls within the regulations and falls within the rates and the whole 9 yards. I mean, we've seen bills of $100,000 where they've called out 2 or 3 records when they only needed 1 record. They have 4 or 5 personnel there. They charge $150 to $300 an hour for each person standing there. And then, folks just, supposedly directing traffic and then when we call the law enforcement agency, say, hey, listen, how many people were out there? And we're like, oh, there's a few people out there. Was there someone from a tow truck company directing traffic? Oh, no, we were directing traffic. So, I mean, it was, like I said, they just put a tariff on a lot of tractor trailers, especially if they weren't from the area. If you had a tow truck business or a tow truck company that you could call with, it was fine, you can call them, but as long as it could get there within 30 minutes of the law enforcement agency arriving on the scene of an incident, like an accident or a breakdown in the road or something like that. But most truckers don't have a list of towing companies throughout the country they can call. So, I mean, they have to rely upon law enforcement to call a tow truck for them.
To what extent do you think this is a model that other states could use to address the situation in their borders?
Well, I think, there'll be set rates. I mean, that's one thing that's, was not, within the state of Maryland. You get, like I said, you could go from one end of the state to the other, and the rates will be all over the place. And the type of equipment that is being used, and the fact that, hey, there will be set rates. If there's a complaint process, there is a complaint process in place. There is no per pound billing, and you can't hold in a truck or trailer hostage or the goods hostage to make sure that the payment gets paid. That gets paid. That was a big problem before, and that was something they really lobbied against, saying, "Hey, listen, the complaint process is good, but we want to get paid for our service, and we should get paid." But that stayed in the bill, which was was great. And I think this is something, like I said, I know Virginia's state legislature is looking at it, and so a lot of state legislatures are looking at it. But again, well, we have to rely on our members in those states, and to some extent, the State Trucking Association. If the State Trucking Association is against it, it's going to be an uphill battle for us.
Well, Doug, is there anything else on this that you think people need to know?
No, I think we covered everything.
Okay, very good. Well, Doug, thank you very much for all the information.
Thanks, Mark.
I've been talking with OOIDA Director of Safety and Security Operations, Doug Morris. And folks, this is one of those things where you need to call your lawmakers, in this case on the state level. You can do that by finding their contact information at the website fightingfortruckers.com. Scroll down on the main page to where it says Find Officials and enter your zip code. The site will look up information for your federal and state elected officials, and you can write a letter right there on the website to your members of Congress. Meanwhile, you can also call your members of Congress on the federal level by dialing up the U.S. Capitol switchboard. Provide the operator your zip code, and they can connect you directly to the office of your senators or your U.S. congressman. That phone number is 202-224-3121. Again, 202-224-3121. Our program is produced by the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association, the only national organization representing the interest of professional truckers in Washington, D.C. and state legislatures, and with the regulatory agencies that deal with transportation and highway safety. If you're not a member yet, call our main number to join at 816-229-5791. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome, and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us! Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.